Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. My name is Robert and I'm known as the Crystal Druid on here and on Instagram. And today we're going to be doing a prosperity spell. A couple different ways you can do it. I'm going to be making a spell bag, and I'm also going to be doing both examples of candles because maybe you have access to 7-day candles, maybe you only have access to little taper candles. They will both work, so either one is fine. It's just whatever you have access to because magic's supposed to be accessible, and so that's how I try to aim my video so that anyone can do it. We have a couple different herbs here. So we have blessed thistle. I like blessed thistle because for me this represents resiliency and protection, and when it comes to prosperity or wealth, for me personally, I used to struggle a lot. I used to be broke all the time, and whenever I would get a bunch of money, burn through it like that. So this is basically about having a resilient income, but also protecting yourself from yourself. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy when it comes to money. I used to not be very good with it. I'm getting better at it now. But when I was struggling and I got a little bit in, burn right through it right away, because you go from struggling mode, it's almost like a battery. You feel like you're drained your whole life, and then you finally get back on your own feet and you get this extra income, and it's like a health bar, and you fill it right back up, but then you have no extra money left over, so you're back to square one. So the blessed thistle is really for protecting that and making sure that you don't burn through all the money that you just come into, but that you actually are able to benefit from it. Next up, we have cinnamon. So cinnamon I like because it is ruled by Mars. It's kind of like a sweet fire, so it attracts things, but it also expedites things. So it's basically, it helps quicken cash flow for you. Next up, you've got allspice, another fun little herb for prosperity. I'm just known for abundance in general. And then you have cloves. So cloves, a lot of people think, oh, that's for protection, and it is. But cloves are also ruled by Mars, which is all about action and movement and kind of bringing things in. And then you also have, this is alkanet root, which is something different you don't usually see, but I really love this for prosperity. But it can also be used for purification, as a heads up, in case you're like, I don't want to burn sage, but what do? Alkanet root is an amazing alternative. And then we've got a couple little goodies. This is actually a protection oil that my friend Brennan made for me. So I use this to actually protect the new income that I have coming my way. So instead of me just blowing right through it or with random unexpected expenses popping up, it kind of keeps those situations away. We also have some crushed up pyrite, just a little bit. We're gonna basically dress this candle or this one with it. You can do either one. And I've got a candle scribe. Now, if you don't have a fancy candle scribe, that's okay. You could easily use a toothpick at home as well. It's not gonna be the end of the world. I, for myself, have this one because it represents a scythe, and that's all about harvest. So that's why I'm using this one, but you don't have to. And lastly, you'll see I've got 2 pieces of green cloth. One of them is going to be the spell bag, and one of them actually has the rune Fehu, which is for prosperity. So I'm going to be burning the candle on top of that rune, and that's going to help bring in that focus of money for me as well. All right, so we've got everything we need for our spell. So we've got our green taper candle and our green 7-day candle. We've got a lighter. We have some twine and some green fabric. We have our candle scribe. We have our cloth with Fehu on it, which is a Norse rune for prosperity and wealth. We've got a mortar and pestle to grind up the herbs, and we have our 5 different herbs. So we've got alkanet, we have blessed thistle, we have cinnamon, allspice, and cloves. We have some crushed up pyrite, and we also have some protection oil. So I think that the easiest way to do it first is to start off making the spell bag. So we're just going to slide Fehu over for a little bit, and we'll go ahead and move our candle over along with our scribe. And we are left with the twine and fabric. So what we're going to do is put the mortar and pestle right on top of the green cloth. You don't have to put it on top of it. I just am because it's convenient. It's right in front of the camera. But we're going to go through each of the herbs as we add into the mortar and pestle, and we're going to name the virtues of the herbs and thank them for those virtues as we add it. So, So I thank this alkanet root for the virtues of purification and prosperity, and I thank you for your help. I thank this blessed thistle for the virtue of resiliency as well as the virtue of protection, and I thank you for your help. I thank the cinnamon for the virtue of expediency as well as abundance and prosperity, and I thank you for your help. So we're just going to grind these first three. And when you're grinding them, you don't have to make a super fine powder. As long as you have them blended together nicely, that's what you're really going for. And I'll show you what that looks like. So kind of a mix like this, where it almost looks like a loose leaf tea. If you make it too fine of a powder, what can sometimes happen is if your fabric is too porous, they feel like little holes, you know, almost like a mesh, but really fine mesh. Sometimes the powder just leaks right out of it. So I like to keep them a little bit more solid. Once you have your herbs in there, we're literally just going to add it right to the center. Just like that. A little goes a long way. Next up, we're going to go ahead and add our allspice. We're going to do 4 allspice pieces as well as 4 clove pieces, because for me, clove represents community and building. So we've got our 4 allspices. So close this, put this back here, and I thank this allspice for the virtue of abundance, and I thank you for your help. And I thank these cloves for the virtues of protection and fire and movement. And I thank you for your help. Next up, we're just going to add a little bit of this crushed pyrite. A little goes a long way, and we're going to use the rest of it for the candles. Just a little sprinkle should do the trick. And we thank it for the virtue of abundance and amplification of our spell. So to close a bag, I usually just take it by the 4 corners, just like that. And then you just kind of let the weight of the herbs kind of seep down to the bottom. And then you give it a little twist. Also, sorry if my camera's a little shaky. There we go. Next up, we're just going to tie this black twine around it. The black twine, multiple uses actually. 1, obviously it holds it together, but 2, I like to use black twine specifically for the correspondence of protection. So it's basically a way of drawing that money to you, but keeping it protected so you can actually benefit from it. That means keeping it out of the hands of, like, for example, like a bill collector or random expenditures that just aren't necessary. And there we go. We have a spell bag. So for spell bags, you can keep this in your right pocket if you were a lefty, or your left pocket if you're a righty. I go by keeping it on the receptive side. So because I am a righty, I keep it in my left pocket because that's my receptive side to receive money. However, once I get the money, I switch it over to my right side so that I'm protecting that money responsibly and in a good way. It could mean that I'm saving money or I'm not buying unnecessary things. And it also mean that I'm donating to charitable organizations, for example, as well. So being a good steward of that money too. So now that we have our spell bag, we can go right into our candle making. So 2 ways to do it. We have our 7-day candle, we've got our taper candle. Both will work for the spell, so you can go either way. It's just whatever you have access to because it's meant to be accessible. So if we are doing, let's do the taper candle first. If we're doing the taper candle, what you want to do, I like to carve the Frun Fehu right into it. And when I carve, I want to make it nice and deep into the wax, because when you are rolling the candle or adding the herbs to it, you basically want to make sure that there is a groove for the herbs to fit into, where they won't just roll off the candle at the end. So let's make some nice deep cuts. Here we go. So deep like that, like give it like a good couple millimeters in there. And then once you've got that initial cut made, then you can form the rest of the rune. There we go. Also, with the rune, don't worry too much if the lines aren't perfect. What we're going for is the general shape. So as long as you get the shape that you can tell it's a Feyhu rune, then you're golden. And also bear in mind, this is just one way of doing it. You might not use runes at all. Maybe you just want to do the herbs. That can also work. For sure. Like you could put your initial into the candle and fill it with herbs. So it's whatever you want. I'm doing the Feyhu rune for myself because I personally work with the runes, but it's different for everybody and that's okay. So I just want to let you know that this isn't the only way to do it. Here we go. All right, so we've got a general Feyhu rune right in here. That's perfect. And what we'll do, we'll just sweep this wax out of the way and we'll contend with that a little bit later. And next up, we want to go ahead and add the pyrite and the oil. So first thing I do is I actually add the oil first. And we're using protection oil because this is meant to protect the money that's coming into us so that when we get it, it doesn't just go to an unexpected bill or a random expense. And then that way you can actually benefit from it. I love that it's like a little roller too. It makes it so much easier. So if you could probably find these at any craft store or maybe the dollar store. If you found like a little rollerball thing, this is a great tool for dressing any candles that you might be working with. So just as an option. Now you don't need a ton, but a little bit does go a long way, which is nice. And next, I'm just going to rub it around the candle just to get the candle coated. It doesn't have to be sopping wet, just enough to get the candle covered. Next up, we're going to add just a little bit of pyrite, just enough to fill in these holes. And it doesn't have to be full completely, you just kind of want to get a little bit into the crevice. If you can get a little bit into the crevices, then you are golden. Literally golden. See what I did there? So clever. There we go. And then what I do is I just kind of like press it in just to make sure it actually adheres. And just like that, you should have a Feyhu rune full of pyrite. Beautiful. So this is one way to do it. You can also, if you want, coat this with cinnamon from the kitchen. I don't have any regular cinnamon. I ran out. I just have my stick cinnamon. But if you have any cinnamon from the kitchen, you could always just give it a little coat, rub it around the candle to get it to stay as an option. Or this works just fine as well. If you have any olive oil at home, then you're all set. So there is candle option number 1. We'll just stand our little Feyhu up there. Candle option number 2. Say that you have 7-day candle instead, because it's what you use normally. You just like these better, or it's what you have access to. You can actually inscribe the Feyhu symbol right inside on the top. Now this will eventually melt in, but that's okay. The goal is just to get it in there to start. And once you got it in there, you're going to see obviously some residual wax. That's okay. We're just going to move that wax out of the way. And it's just going to melt back into the candle anyway, so no worries. We'll just consider it a little extra. There we go, just brush this stuff out of the way. And we're starting to get some shape, so that's perfect. There we go. And you can kind of see the shape in there. It's starting to take form a little bit. And that's the goal. It doesn't have to be a perfectly measured feihu. As long as you got it in there where you know that it's feihu, you are good. So now that we have that, we'll put our scribe out of the way, and we can go ahead and add the rest of our pyrite right on top. Got a lot more in there. That's okay. I'm a heavy pourer today. So we'll go ahead and press that in. And now you can see our feihu full of pyrite. Lovely. You can absolutely add herbs to this too if you want to. As I throw things. Bear in mind though, you don't want to add a ton. So I'm literally just using the residual leftover dust from when we first ground it up. A little's going to go a long way. And you don't want to put big chunks of herbs in there because it's going to be right next to fire and we're not trying to burn the house down. So this is a nice way to do it where you have the herbs, the pyrite, the bind rune, or the regular rune rather, I should say. And once you've got the rune in there and everything's dressed, you are good to go. So to finish off the spell work, you can do a couple of ways. What I like to do, because I have the feihu right there, you could do the same thing on a piece of paper with a green marker, by the way. This is just because I have access to make this myself. But if you don't have a way to get one of these or make this yourself, a piece of paper and a pencil is perfectly fine. If you've got like a green marker, cool. Any color correspondence that you can think of, totally go for it. But either way, your spell is going to work because you're basically the one fueling it. All right, so we have our spell all set up. We have our taper candle with feihu in it. We also have our 7-day candle with feihu and the herbs on top. We have our feihu rune, and we also have our spell bag you can keep in your pocket. So a couple of ways you can go about this. If you are looking for a new job or a new career, maybe you do this on a Wednesday, because Wednesday is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is all about communication and negotiating, so you can get the best salary for your work. If you are looking for a raise, maybe you do this on a Thursday or a Friday, because Thursday is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is all about expansion and growth, so, growing your funds. But also a Friday, because it's ruled by Venus, which is all about love and self-love. So knowing your worth, communicating that worth to your boss, and your boss perceiving that worth. So a couple of different approaches depending on what you want to do. You can also ask your ancestors for help in this too, because they're looking out for you as well as any ancestor or parent would, So I hope that you found this video helpful and enjoyable, and if you did, feel free to hit subscribe and give it a thumbs up, and I will look forward to seeing you for the next video.